The NBA is the ultimate "what have you done for me lately" league. Superstars can dominate one season and be criticized the very next if their numbers dip, if their team underperforms, or if injuries keep them off the court. That's just the reality of playing under the brightest lights in professional basketball. And this year, several big-name players find themselves in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Whether it's because of injuries, inconsistency, or questions about leadership, they're under serious pressure to bounce back. Not just for their reputations, but for the futures of their teams. So today, we're breaking down 5 NBA stars who desperately need to bounce back this season. We'll look at what went wrong, what's at stake, and what it's going to take for each of them to silence the critics. Player number 1, Luka Doncic, Los Angeles Lakers. When you think of young superstars, Luka Doncic is one of the first names that comes to mind. He's already a perennial MVP candidate, a global face of the game, and someone who has proven he can lead a team deep into the playoffs. But last season, by Luka's own high standards, it was a disappointment. Now let's be clear. Most players would dream of having the numbers Luka put up. He still averaged about 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. For 99% of the league, that's career-defining. But Luka isn't just any player. 2 years ago, he was putting up 34 points per game and leading the Mavericks all the way to the NBA Finals. So, what happened? First off, health. Luka started the year nursing nagging knee and groin pain. Then, on Christmas Day, he suffered a calf injury that sidelined him for over a month. When he came back, he wasn't wearing the blue and white of the Mavericks anymore. He was suddenly a Los Angeles Laker. That trade shocked the entire basketball world. Dallas not only moved on from the player who just carried them to the finals, but also trashed him on the way out, calling him out of shape, lazy on defense, and suggesting they'd be better without him. The move rattled Luka. He never seemed settled in LA, and his playoff performance reflected that. Opposing teams relentlessly targeted him on defense, and his playmaking dipped by 2 fewer assists per game compared to the year before. And here's the bigger issue. The Western Conference just got even stronger. If the Lakers want to contend, Luka has to return to MVP form, because this roster still has holes. And the only way to cover them is by having Luka dominate the way we know he can. For Luka, this season isn't about proving he belongs among the league's elite. We already know that. It's about proving that last year's struggles were an outlier, not the beginning of a downward trend. Player number 2, Joel Embiid, Philadelphia 76ers. Next up, we've got Joel Embiid, one of the most dominant big men of this era. At his peak, Embiid is unstoppable. Just 2 seasons ago, he was named the league MVP. And in 2024, before disaster struck, he was having arguably the most dominant season in modern NBA history. But then came the meniscus tear. That injury changed everything. Embiid rushed back to try to save Philly's playoff run that year. He played through pain and still looked solid against the Knicks, but the lingering effects have followed him ever since. Last season, it caught up to him. Embiid played just 19 games. In those games, he averaged 24 points and 8 rebounds, numbers that would be fantastic for most centers. But for Embiid, it was a massive step back. His efficiency dropped to career lows, both from the field and from 3. He looked slower, less explosive, and honestly, like a shell of the MVP version we saw not long ago. The Sixers shut him down in February, hoping extended rest would finally give his knee the recovery time it desperately needed. But here's the problem. Time is not on Philly's side. Embiid is owed $242 million over the next 4 years. That's a supermax deal that only makes sense if he's playing like an MVP. And the Sixers are all in on winning right now. They've built this roster around him, and on paper they have the tools to compete in the East. But if Embiid can't stay healthy, the Sixers don't just lose their title hopes. They're stuck with one of the league's biggest financial burdens. This year, Embiid has to prove that he can return to form. He doesn't even need to play all 82 games, but he needs to be healthy when it matters most. Because if not, Philly's window to contend might slam shut. Player number 3, Paul George, Philadelphia 76ers. Sticking with the Sixers, let's talk about Paul George. When Philly signed him in free agency, it was a statement. The Sixers were going all in, pairing George with Embiid to form one of the most talented duos in the league. On paper, it looked great. In reality, not so much. George's first year in Philadelphia was rough. He strained his knee early, and that injury lingered all season. He missed stretches of games, and when he was on the floor, he just didn't look like himself. For the first time in over a decade, George failed to look like a star. He averaged just 16 points per game, his lowest mark since his early Indiana days. His first step looked slower. He couldn't create separation, and his three-point shooting was the second worst of his career. By February, the Sixers shut him down. Now George is 35. At that age, injuries don't just go away, they often get worse. So, the question is, can he still be an all-star level player, or has he officially entered the decline phase of his career? The Sixers sure hope it's the former, because they committed $162 million over 3 seasons to him. They need him healthy, aggressive, and dangerous from deep. If he repeats last year's struggles, Philly's big gamble will look like a bust. This season is about legacy for Paul George. Can he shake the narrative of being injury-prone and inconsistent in big moments? Or will his time in Philly be remembered as the start of his decline? Player number 4, LaMelo Ball, Charlotte Hornets. Now we move to Charlotte, where LaMelo Ball is at a crossroads in his career. When LaMelo first entered the league, he was electric, Rookie of the Year, All-Star by year 2. He looked like the future of the franchise. But since then, things have gone downhill. On paper, last season looked like a breakout. LaMelo averaged a career-high 25 points per game. But if you dig deeper, it tells a different story. His efficiency was terrible. He shot worse from both the field and from 3 than ever before. In fact, his scoring efficiency has gotten worse in 3 of the last 4 years. And it's not just about shot making. LaMelo's shot selection has become reckless. He ranked second in the NBA in shot attempts per game, behind only MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But unlike SGA, who's incredibly efficient, LaMelo's looks were often low quality, forced, and ineffective. Add in the injuries. He's played only 105 out of 246 possible games in the last 3 seasons, and you can see why Charlotte is frustrated. The Hornets have been rebuilding forever, and they need results. If LaMelo doesn't clean up his shot selection, improve on defense, and most importantly, stay on the court, this might be the last year the team truly views him as their franchise cornerstone. This is the make or break year for LaMelo. He can either silence the critics and prove he's more than just an empty stats guy, or risk becoming an afterthought on a team that desperately needs direction. Player number 5, Ja Morant, Memphis Grizzlies. Finally, let's talk about Ja Morant. Just a couple of years ago, Ja was on a superstar trajectory. He had the Grizzlies sitting as the 2 seed in the West in 2022 and 2023. His explosive athleticism, flashy highlights, and fearless leadership made Memphis one of the most exciting teams in the league. But since then, it's been downhill. Last year, reports came out that Ja was clashing with coaches. The team introduced a new offensive scheme, and Ja hated it. He looked disengaged, frustrated, and his numbers reflected that. He averaged 23 points per game, his lowest in 5 years, and turned the ball over more than ever before. As the Grizzlies started to slide, the tension boiled over. Eventually, Memphis fired head coach Taylor Jenkins. This offseason, they doubled down on Ja, trading away Desmond Bane and hiring a new coach who built a system more suited to Ja's strengths. Now the ball will be back in Ja's hands the way it was during his rise. The team is deeper, the system fits him better, and there are no excuses. This is a defining year for Ja Morant. Can he get back to the fearless, explosive star who looked ready to take over the league? Or will his decline continue, forcing Memphis to rethink whether he's really the leader of their future? So there you have it. Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, Paul George, LaMelo Ball, and Ja Morant. 5 stars under the most pressure to bounce back this season. Each has the talent to silence the critics. Each has the opportunity to lead their team to bigger things. But if they don't, the narratives around them could shift permanently. Let me know in the comments. Which player do you think is under the most pressure this season? And who do you think will rise to the occasion? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown.